If you are a podcaster who's wanting to land sponsorships, speaking engagements, awards, and building a reputation, and somehow it feels like everybody is kind of ahead of you and everyone seems to be landing the deals that you dream of, and you're feeling stuck, you have to listen to this podcast episode because I've heard it from so many both my clients and also people in my community on Instagram about feeling stuck and feeling like everyone is landing all of these opportunities but them. So this podcast episode is about identifying the reasons why you're stuck, finding solutions that will work to get you out of that funk and into action and actually get those deals. So I'm Anna Xavier. I'm the founder of the podcast space. And as a podcast strategist, marketer, and coach, I teach podcasters from all over the world. I have clients in over 14 countries, and I help them build a reputation online, grow their downloads, their connections with decision makers, and basically make a name for themselves through podcasting. I promise this episode is going to be super quick and super impactful. So pay attention, and maybe you need to replay it again, just in case you missed something. All right, let's dive into this week's episode. All right, after working with podcasters for well over 15 years, I realized that there's so many things that get us stuck. And number one is mindset. And I find that this is a common recurrence, especially in underrepresented communities and women and multilinguals, because we find that it's hard for us to take space. We find it hard to make time for these things. And so I always tell people, if you want to win podcast awards, if you want to win sponsorship opportunities, you have to apply for them. And while in some instances, there will be people that will apply for you and nominate you, 99% of cases, it's self-nominated. And even like the Hollywood stars, like people apply to have a Hollywood star and they pay for the maintenance, they pay for all of it. So this idea that someone will come on, a white horse to be your savior, we can actually have agency in our own success. And I want you to think about that. If you feel really frustrated, this is the first thing that I want you to think about. How much time are you actually dedicating to the things that will get you to your goals that you set up for your podcast? And what I mean by this is, if you want some dream guests to be on your podcast, it's time to stop dreaming and start actioning. I know that it feels like fear. I read somewhere that it was like, fear is a mile wide and 1 inch deep. And it's so true. Something feels like it's massive, but when you start realizing that is one step after another step forward, you realize it's totally doable. And what that means is sending. This is the actionable part. You have to start sending emails, whether that's for applying for sponsorships, applying for awards, asking people to nominate you. All of these things feel scary, but when you realize, you're like, oh, it's just literally sending an email. Am I scared of sending an email, or am I scared of being, canceled or being rejected? Sometimes it's the fear of rejection that really keeps us stuck, because if I'm saying, and this is where it's really interesting that when I'm working with coaching clients, we spend so much of our time just going through the actions, and the actions are, you need to send this email. This email needs to say X, right? And it's like, okay, you will learn as you send. I will always say, like, less is more. And so when we're looking around and seeing people landing all these opportunities, the amount of emails they may have sent, right? The amount of follow-up. And so it's something that you have to consider. If that's important to you, it's time to make time for that. So I want you to think about, if cold email is not your thing, then it's time to go on your preferred social media platform. Especially LinkedIn is great. I'm on Instagram primarily, but I use LinkedIn as my secondary platform, and where a lot of the quote unquote business gets done, right? Because this is a professional social media network. So people are supposed to connect, are supposed to engage. Yes, there's a lot of like over the top pretentiousness happening on LinkedIn, but if you start looking at how you can use it strategically, super important. Especially, this is so funny because some of my clients listening to this, you will know, because a lot of times sending an email, people get so overwhelmed in their inbox, they're not going to reply to you. But if you start building a connection and a relationship on LinkedIn, they're going to start paying attention to you. They're going to see your name more often. And again, it's about building a relationship. It's not just like, what's in it for me, right? So comment on the decision makers. They are responsible for the sponsorships. If you want to get opportunities for speaking engagements, for instance, it's time to also apply to look for those, especially today with ChatGPT. You can ask it, or you can go online and ask Gemini or ChatGPT, give me a list of all the conferences related to my industry, right? And so I will be honest, only 4 times in my career, I've been actually asked to speak at conferences. And that happened because already we had built a relationship. But for everything that I've landed on, I had to apply. And so we have to stop asking ourselves, like, why is everyone else getting opportunities but us? Well, maybe that person is spending time nurturing those relationships. Maybe that person is sending more pitches in more volume than you are. So just think about like what we focus on, we will get results. It's not impossible. But I also want you to think about one thing. The amount of time that we spend looking for opportunities, of course, it will feel like we're spending so much time doing all of these things, but it will yield. And again, the more you do it, the more you'll see. But if you are strategic about the type of awards that you're looking for, the type of speaking opportunities that you'll be getting, of course, if you're just someone who's just beginning your journey and you're applying for an opportunity at a big organization, it's still possible that you land an opportunity, but in terms of possibility, it's a little more unlikely that you land. Not impossible, not impossible. But this is where maybe building a relationship with someone on the organizing team or someone who selects the pitches will help you. Also, building a reputation, building a community as you are doing is already enticing. There's a lot of conferences that will look at the type of speaker, the audience size of the speaker, but also the type of content they are creating. And they realize that you're quite unique in your niche. They may be giving you an opportunity. So that's why it's important to not be shy and toot our own horn always. And then the last thing is that to build a reputation means that it takes time. And I think that a lot of people want to basically speed up the part of building experience. And so I'm sorry, but if you're just new, and especially I see this a lot in the podcast industry, a lot of people pivot from one career into podcasting and they get really annoyed and they say, there's like air quotes, the gatekeepers and the people who've been working at it for so long, and they get annoyed. And I'm like, well, if you work in an industry, of course you're going to have a what's called competitive advantage. And I think that a lot of people hold that against other folks and say, so-and-so got a book opportunity, so-and-so got a speaking opportunity. Well, because they're doing it for longer. And so we cannot forget that that's really important, and we cannot hold it against other folks. And again, I'm someone who's done so many different jobs alongside podcasting, and I think that there's a true value in combining different skills, soft skills, hard skills, and bring that into podcasting because it brings you a unique, fresh perspective. But let's not complain about the people who have more experience, who are more connected, who have done more. And so that is the number one approach for some folks, right? Like they will go always to that person because they're the ones who've been doing it for the longest. Sometimes they're not doing it the best way, or they're not doing it the most collaborative way. But we just have to understand that to build a reputation, we need to give it time. Or we need to make strategic interactions with those who have, right? And build our online portfolio or online footprint with those who are more knowledgeable. And let me tell you a story about the importance of not holding stuff against other people. So last year, I applied for a podcast conference, and there were a few people in my sphere that I knew that they were ready for the next step, and I knew that they were kind of like looking to grow their speaking opportunities. And I remember thinking, I need to send them these links. And so there were these 4 people that I sent over opportunities for speaking, and I applied for that as well. And lo and behold, all of them got selected but me. And, that's something that will happen, is that as you grow in your visibility and your expertise online, you will start finding people getting opportunities, and you passed along an opportunity and you're like, oh, well, could that person have, air quotes, taken the opportunity from me, that I could have gotten that speaking opportunity instead of them if they didn't apply? Who knows? But to me, I call this building good karma and building the industry forward. And so whatever it is that the industry you're working in, whatever it is, the subsection of podcasting, whatever niche you have, we're stronger together. And I love that. I think it's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go together. And it's so true. Like, think about the opportunities that you may have if you start sending opportunities to other people, if you start sending basically opportunities for collaboration on social media, on your podcast, on your website, on your newsletters. We are stronger together as we create opportunities. So, to recap, I want you to think about, if you're not getting opportunities, if you're feeling stuck and nothing is going your way, have you been, number one, nurturing your networks? Have you been sending the emails for the things you want? Are you dedicating time for the things that do matter to you instead of just wishing that they land? And then really spending time looking for opportunities instead of just thinking, I don't know, I wish there was. If you start Googling, especially with ChatGPT, use technology to your advantage. And then last but not least, opportunities come to those who do have a longer experience, a longer track record. And so they will have an unfair advantage, but it is down to you to also not feel like isolated and just kind of be annoyed at it. It is what it is, but you can continue to be visible. You can continue to create your own change as long as you persist and you take consistent action publicly or even behind the scenes to get to what you want. I hope this podcast was actionable, that you feel inspired and ready to act on your future, and opportunities are there. If you feel discouraged and you want additional thumbs up and support, you can talk to me on Instagram. I'm at The Podcast Space. And of course, resources are available to you at thepodcastspace.com. My coaching, my services, all of it is there. So find me there. Also, stick around for an upcoming episode with Justin Moore, the sponsorship coach that I know he's going to drop so many good opportunities, so many techniques that you can replicate to win your next sponsorship opportunity. So remember to keep an eye out for that episode. Keep creating imperfect content that moves you forward. Bye.